We are continuing in today's Mishna Yomi, and today we find ourselves in Peah, Perek Vav, Mishnayos Gimel through Daled, Chapter 6, Mishnayos 3 through 4. So Mishnah Gimel says as follows, an interesting Mishnah. Rashi Shuros, Ha'omer Shekenegdo Mochiach. So the Mishnah says as follows this here, that if you have a situation where, remember we're still talking about shechacha, so I've left behind a bundle of wheat in my field. So the Mishnah says as follows, Rosh Shuros, if the bundles you left in the field are bundles at the end of the rows, remember again, the field is comprised of a series of rows, and you left your bundles at the end of the rows. So the Mishnah says, Ha'omer shekenegdo mochiach. Ultimately, again, the fact that there's another bundle next to it indicates that halacha lemaisa, that nothing is forgotten. Remember again, this goes back to yesterday's, or I should say last Mishna Yomi, where we learned about the concept that if you left the bundle in a way that it's next to something that's kind of anchoring you to the spot, so by definition, it's not considered forgotten. So in this case over here, you're forgetting a bundle at the end of the rows, which means that there are other bundles next to it. The fact that there are other bundles there indicates that the one that you forgot is not really forgotten. Ha'omer shehich lo licha ela'ir. What happens in the following situation? You have a bundle, and your intention was to go ahead and take the bundle and bring it to your home. So what happened? Then halacha l'maisa, you put it. So you picked up the bundle with the intention to take it to your home, which the Mishnah says is in the ear in the city. After you picked it up, you then put it down. After you put it down, you subsequently forgot it. What's the halacha? Modim she'eno shechacha. Everyone agrees, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, that halacha l'maisa, this is not shechacha. Now, why is this not shechacha? So this is an interesting case. Because in this situation, since you already picked up the bundle with the intention to take it home, that act of picking it up with the intention to take it home, by definition, renders it yours. The fact that you put it back down and subsequently forgot it does not make it shechacha. Incredible. Mishnah Daled. Ve'elohin Rosh Shuros. Remember again, the previous Mishnah discussed the idea that if you forgot a bundle at the ends of the rows, that's not called the end of each or end of a row. That is not called shechacha. So the Mishnah says, what's the definition of Rosh Shuros? So shnayim she'eschilu me'emtza hashuros. So if you could imagine, let's say you have two workers who started collecting the bundles from the middle of a row. So they're standing in the middle of the row, and each worker goes in a different direction. So the Bartanura, illustrates this with tzafon ledorom. So two workers begin in the middle of the row, one goes north and one goes south. Zeh panav letzafon, v'zeh panav ledorom. The Mishnah says it explicitly. This one goes north and this one goes south. And what happens? V'shachachu lifneihem. And ultimately, again, they forgot a bundle that was in front of them. So in other words, that halacha l'maisa, each worker passed by bundles and forgot them. What's the halacha? Ula achareim, or for that matter again, both workers forgot bundles which were behind them. So the Mishnah says, Es shelifneihem shichacha. So ultimately again, the bundles that they forgot in front of them are going to be shichacha. The es shela achareihem eno shichacha. But at the end of the day, that which is behind them ultimately, again, will not be shechacha. Now remember again, that's the bundle that they skipped when they started working. So that bundle, the Bartanura says, that bundle that's in back of them, that's behind them, is not going to be shechacha. Now the logic behind that is because even though one worker forgot it, so to speak, the other worker didn't forget it. In other words, the other worker ultimately will come across that particular bundle. What happens? So again, the first case is where you have two workers, one going north, one going south. So the bundles ultimately, again, in front of them will be shechacha. The bundles behind them, right, which is the bundle that they skipped when they started working, that's not shechacha. But if you have a single worker, now in this case over here, the worker is not beginning from the middle of a row, but rather the worker is beginning from the beginning of the row. So what happens in this case? So ultimately, again, and he forgot a bundle. he forgot a bundle, either in front of him or behind him. Right? He forgot a bundle in front of him or a bundle behind him. What's talacha? Shalafanav eno shechacha. The bundle that was left in front of him, which is the bundle at the end of the row, that's not shechacha. Ushala acharav shechacha. But the bundle that was left behind him, i.e. the bundle that was skipped in the middle of the row, that will be shechacha. Why? Mipnei shehu bebal tashuv. Now again, what that means is once a bundle is considered to be shechacha, so if in this case over here, so remember, in the previous case, we had two workers, that was one din. This case over here, you have a worker, an individual worker, who's beginning to collect the bundles from the beginning of the row, working his way towards the end of the row. So the Mishnah says very simply, the halacha is, anything that is in front of him is not shechacha, because anything that is in front of him is what we'll call considered to be at the end of the row. This goes back to the beginning of the Mishnah. Anything left at the end of the row is not considered to be shechacha, but that which is left behind him will be shechacha. And therefore, once it's shechacha, there's bal tashuv. You're not allowed to go back and collect it. Zaklal. So the Mishnah ends off by saying, here is the rule. Here is the principle. Kol shuba bal tashuv shechacha. Anytime that halacha l'maaseh, you are not permitted to go ahead and turn back, right? So remember again, the idea of shechacha is something that's left behind you. So if it's left behind you and you're not allowed to go back, that's called shechacha. Ultimately, v'she'eno bebal tashuv eno shechacha, but anything ultimately again, which you would not apply the prohibition to turn back, is not going to be considered to be shechacha. Good. So a fascinating Mishnah which distinguishes again between beginning of the row, I should say end of the row, and also end of the row versus middle of the row. Also, the case is distinguishing between one worker working his way from one end of the row to the end, and two workers working in opposite directions. Shkayach, everyone. Will stop over here. Wishing everyone a wonderful day.